Listen to me. We don't want to kill any of you. But trust me, we will.
Red Dead Redemption 2 may not be out until October, but at least Rockstar has seen fit to furnish us with another trailer for the gun-toting, bank-robbing open-world adventure. While only a couple of minutes long, so apologies in advance for all the repeated footage in this video, it still contains a whole posse's worth of interesting details. Not to mention some other outlets have already had a sneak peek, so without any further ado, here are 21 things we know about Red Dead Redemption 2. First up, Red Dead Redemption 2 is set in the year 1899, which, for those of you who are counting, is 12 years before the events of Red Dead Redemption. The trailer itself sheds light on the makeup of Dutch van der Linde's gang, where the protagonist Arthur Morgan fits into proceedings, and just how keen everybody is on a good old-fashioned fire.
You have to love yourself a fire.
Now, in 1899, the end of the Wild West is fast approaching. It's getting harder and harder, in other words, to be a no-good outlaw. And this is where our story begins. According to some bump released alongside the trailer, it's a robbery gone wrong in Blackwater that gets the game's action rolling, with the heist calling down a lot of heat on Dutch's gang. With federal agents and bounty hunters on their tail, the gang has to, quote, rob, steal and fight their way across the rugged heartland of America in order to survive. Now, with the bungled robbery happening in Blackwater and the game starting in 1899, it's highly likely the event that gets the game rolling is, in fact, the Blackwater Massacre. While the exact cause was never made clear, the massacre, as you may remember from Red Dead Redemption, involved a vast shootout between outlaws and lawmen, with tens of people taking a long dirt nap before the day was out. One of the sole survivors of the massacre was Landon Ricketts, who Marston meets as a retired man living a quiet-ish life. And if the trademark moustache is anything to go by, it looks like he's in Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. Now, if this is indeed Ricketts, and I'm fairly convinced it is, then it's worth noting he'll have a different voice actor in the prequel. Ross Hagen, who gave voice to Landon in the first game, sadly passed away in 2011 at the age of 72. To come back to the story for a moment though, it appears the flight across America is a bit tough on Dutch's gang, as bonds are tested and conflicts between the members threaten to tear the whole thing apart. Our protagonist, Arthur Morgan, of course, is caught up right in the middle of it, suddenly finding his loyalty to the gang tested in the face of these new and desperate times. What I didn't realise until today, when IGN reported on a recent demo from Rockstar North, is that Morgan is actually Dutch's right-hand man in Red Dead Redemption 2, so it makes sense that Morgan would be in the thick of it. According to IGN, in fact, you're not just in the middle of Dutch's gang's politics, but in its homestead as well. A lot of RDR2 revolves around Dutch's camp, a hub that allows you to keep abreast of what's going on, as well as interacting in a more everyday manner with the gang itself, which is to say making sure it's all running smoothly. With so many people living together in one place, the camp, rather understandably, has needs. You might be told, for example, that supplies of meat are running low, and if you want, you can trundle out on your horse and go get it for them. These activities aren't mandatory, mind you, so if you're still feeling a little worn out from all of Preston Garvey's antics in Fallout 4, you shouldn't worry. The activities are there if you do fancy engaging with them, and while there are no further details as yet, there are also rewards to be earned should you pitch in and do your bit for the camp. When it comes to hunting, by the way, you now have more of a choice than simply shooting an animal and then skinning it as you did in the first Red Dead Redemption. Again, thanks to IGN, we now know you can choose to skin an animal and take its pelt, or tie the whole thing to your horse and take it with you. Stalking your prey and killing it with a bow and arrow apparently means you'll get more money out of hunting, because clean kills don't spoil the pelt or carcass quite as much, and once you've lashed an animal to your horse, you're free to either take it to the camp for the good of your fellow outlaws, or keep it for yourself and sell it for cold, hard cash. Whichever you do though, don't take too long about it, as rotting is now a mechanic in Red Dead Redemption 2. There's something I didn't anticipate saying this morning. Anyway, leave an animal strapped to your horse for too long and it'll start to deteriorate, severely reducing its value and, let's face it, probably losing you some friends along the way. So whatever you kill out in the wilderness of Red Dead Redemption 2, make sure you shift it before it starts rotting. Common sense, really. While we're talking about your horse, actually, it's interesting to note your equine friends take on a more involved role in your adventures in the West than they did previously. Where in Red Dead Redemption the strength of your bond with a horse determined how hard you could push it before being thrown, now it governs how skittish your horse will be and also how far away it can hear your whistle from. This is especially important because your horse is where you store your larger weapons, so if you need to use your rifle but it's too far away to come when called, the horse, not the rifle, or it runs off at the first sign of trouble, you're going to find yourself in a spot of bother. Unsurprisingly, should your horse die, you'll be in even bigger trouble. What's worse, when you get a new horse, it quite understandably won't have any recollection of how strong your bond was with the previous, now very much deceased one, so you'll have to start the bonding process all over again. Anyway, back to the trailer. One of the things you almost certainly spotted for yourself is that John Marston, as hoped, appears to be making an appearance. At one point in the trailer, a younger and, strangely, quite frightened looking Marston is put in a headlock, giving us a great opportunity to study his trademark facial scars before he even had the stitches out. This, of course, begs a few questions. Was young Marston really as bad as he claimed to be in Red Dead Redemption? What's he going to get up to in the second game? And are we going to get to see how he earned those scars? The stitches in John's face, of course, aren't the only small details to be picked up on in the trailer. For one thing, it looks like hand-to-hand combat has been beefed up considerably since the fairly clumsy fights of the first Red Dead Redemption. In this footage we see a good old-fashioned brawl taking place, but the camera seems to be pretty close in on the action. Now, this of course could be from a cutscene rather than a very brief gameplay snippet, but it could be that bare knuckle brawling is a minigame in Red Dead Redemption 2 in the same way dueling was, and presumably still is. Now, if you look at this shot where someone is thrown from a moving wagon, their body slides along the ground when it hits rather than going into a second animation, leading some to think this clip, at least, is actual gameplay. And if that's the case, then the fisticuffs we see might well be gameplay too. Your thoughts on that one in the comments, if you'd be so kind. Now, as mentioned previously, a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2 revolves around good old-fashioned robbery. The trailer opens up with one in progress, in fact. That and the glimpses of the bank job we get in the trailer give a fairly clear indicator of the importance of teamwork when pulling off a massive heist, and indeed, it seems you can influence exactly how the gang approaches each job directly. According to IGN's preview, different members of the gang can be assigned different roles in the heist, whether that's to distract the targets, provide muscle, be a bagman, and so on and so forth. Just how meticulously these things can be planned remains to be seen, but it sounds pretty promising. The vast majority of Marston's missions in Red Dead Redemption, as I'm sure you'll remember, involved him walking in alone and laying everyone to waste, so I think it'll be a refreshing change of pace to be working as part of a team every once in a while. It'll also be interesting to see where some of these robberies take place. While the game does start out in Blackwater, which isn't as developed in RDR2 as we're used to seeing it, some eagle-eyed fans have noticed a couple of shots that suggest cities big enough to have cable cars. Exactly what and how big these locations are is unclear at this point, but it's a tantalising glimpse of some potentially very ambitious environments. So on balance, the trailer is pretty darn interesting, and I have to say it has me very interested in the overall tone of Red Dead Redemption 2. You could of course play the last game as a ruthless killer, but all in all, Marston's story was one of a man trying to atone for his past. And while some amount of moral turpitude has been hinted at for Morgan, it bears repeating he's still part of a gang of outlaws who are very much active during the events of the game. Will Red Dead Redemption 2 have the same emphasis on tracking the morality of your actions, or should we just get used to the idea of playing a scoundrel now? We do at least know that people will react differently to you depending on the time of day or whether you have a gun drawn, for instance, but how much your reputation as an outlaw precedes you in Red Dead Redemption 2 is unclear at this point. And finally, the 21st thing we know about Red Dead Redemption 2 is that it has this nice gun in it. Is this a sign of fancy or even customizable weapons in the upcoming game? I certainly hope so, because frankly, if a gun doesn't have gold filigree on it, then I really don't want to know. And there you have it, 21 things we know about Red Dead Redemption 2. Doubtless there are some fine details in the trailer that didn't make it into this list, however, so please feel free to share the things you spotted in the comments below. We've got loads more videos for you to watch, including a feature on the real-life cowboys we hope inspire characters in RDR2, so give one of those a watch if you fancy it. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.